What if the same group blamed for California's housing crisis is also the primary workforce building homes to solve it? According to the National Association of Home Builders, immigrants make up 39% of California's construction workforce. That means nearly 4 out of every 10 workers building California's homes were born outside the United States. This creates one of the most fascinating paradoxes in American real estate. Immigrants are simultaneously building California's homes and competing for them. They're framing houses in the morning and searching for affordable rentals at night. Today, we're examining how immigration actually impacts California's housing market, and the answer is far more complex than most headlines suggest. Before we jump in, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment sharing your perspective, because this conversation affects everyone. Immigration drives population growth. From 2021 to 2024, immigration accounted for 84% of America's total population growth. In 2024, the United States recorded its highest immigration level on record, surpassing 2.8 million arrivals. For California, as a border state with established immigrant communities and strong labor demand, this influx has been even more pronounced. Nearly 50 million immigrants live in the U.S., representing 15% of the population. In California specifically, over 1 in 4 residents are immigrants, totaling almost 11 million people. This demographic reality directly shapes California's housing market in profound ways. Immigrants building California. Here's the critical fact most people miss. Immigrants don't just live in California, they literally build it. California accounts for over 437,000 foreign-born construction workers, representing 39% of the construction workforce. Texas and California combined have more than 1.1 million foreign-born construction workers. The Center for Migration Studies estimates that 54% of foreign-born construction workers are undocumented. This creates significant policy complications, but the bottom line is clear. Without immigrant construction labor, California cannot build enough homes to meet current demand. The construction industry faces a severe labor shortage. As of September 2025, 282,000 construction jobs remained unfilled nationwide. Industry groups expect the construction sector to need nearly 454,000 new workers on top of normal hiring to meet demand in 2025. After the 2008 financial crisis, nearly 1.7 million native-born workers left construction and never returned. Immigrant workers filled that gap. Jim Tobin, CEO of the National Association of Home Builders, emphasized, "Immigrant workers are vital for our capacity to construct homes at affordable prices. Any factors that might affect the labor pool, particularly the immigrant workforce, raise concerns about our ability to address housing demands." Now the other side. Immigrants also need places to live. Immigrants have accounted for roughly 40% of new household formation since 2010. From 2022 to 2024, research found that almost all new renter households came from immigration. However, the impact on for-sale housing is more nuanced. In their first 2 years in the U.S., almost 9 in 10 immigrant households are renters. Most new homeowners came from people already living in the U.S. rather than recent immigrants. Over time, immigrant homeownership rates increase. The foreign-born homeownership rate reached 58.5% in 2023. In 2023, immigrant households paid over $167 billion in rent nationwide and held over $6.6 trillion in housing wealth. In California alone, undocumented immigrants contribute $8.5 billion in taxes to help pay for public services. These numbers demonstrate immigrants' substantial participation in California's housing market as both tenants and owners. The most immediate impact appears in rental markets. Because nearly 90% of recent immigrants start as renters, immigration surges create intense competition for affordable rental units. However, research from John Burns Consulting emphasizes that the affordability crisis that has been evident since the late 2010s and during the pandemic has largely been driven by growth in households led by native-born individuals. Immigrants add pressure to an already stressed system, but they're not the primary cause of California's rental affordability crisis. Research analyzing immigration and local housing markets found that an immigration inflow equal to 1% of a county's population raises housing price appreciation modestly. This demonstrates a measurable but limited impact on home values from immigration-driven demand. Why immigrant construction labor matters. Residential construction operates on thin margins, with labor representing over 30% of project budgets. Immigrant workers typically accept wages that make certain housing projects economically viable, particularly affordable housing developments operating on razor-thin margins. The National Association of Home Builders warns that any significant reduction in immigrant construction labor would drive up housing costs. Some estimates suggest losing immigrant construction workers could increase housing costs by 10 to 20% as remaining workers demand higher wages. For California, where housing is already among the most expensive in the nation, a 10 to 20% cost increase would be catastrophic. It would price even more families out of home ownership and make affordable housing development increasingly difficult. The 2025 immigration decline. Immigration to the United States has dropped sharply in 2025, with some reports indicating declines as much as 90% compared to recent peaks. The American Enterprise Institute projects net migration could turn negative in 2025, marking the lowest sustained level in over 60 years. For California's housing market, this creates complex implications. On the supply side, builders report that trade workers are growing more cautious due to concerns about immigration enforcement. If immigration declines persist, California could face severe construction labor shortages within 12 to 24 months, slowing housing construction precisely when the state needs to accelerate building. On the demand side, declining immigration reduces pressure on rental markets and could slow home price appreciation. However, this demand reduction is less significant than many assume, since immigrants primarily rent initially and contribute to for-sale demand only after years of establishment. The deportation scenario. The Urban Institute analyzed potential mass deportation scenarios, and the findings are sobering. If deportations targeted undocumented construction workers, the U.S. could lose between 1.7 and 1.8 million construction workers. For California, losing 15 to 20% of the construction workforce would bring residential construction to a crawl. Research examining stricter immigration enforcement during previous administrations found it led to lasting declines in construction labor and home building, along with rising home prices. The research also found that undocumented workers complement rather than substitute for U.S.-born workers, meaning deportations led to net job losses for U.S.-born workers too. The mechanism is straightforward. Undocumented workers often handle lower-skill jobs like general labor. If those jobs aren't done, there's no demand for higher-skill jobs like electricians or plumbers, more commonly done by U.S.-born workers. The entire construction ecosystem relies on having workers at all skill levels. Importantly, there's no evidence that mass deportations would free up housing and lower costs. The opposite is more likely. Reduced construction capacity would worsen the housing shortage and drive up costs. The real causes of California's housing crisis. California's housing crisis stems from decades of underbuilding relative to population growth, driven by restrictive zoning, high construction costs, lengthy permitting, Proposition 13's property tax limitations, and regulatory barriers. The state needs to build 400,000 units annually to address its shortage, but currently builds only about 110,000. Immigration adds complexity, but isn't the primary cause. Blaming immigrants for California's housing problems distracts from addressing the real regulatory and economic barriers preventing adequate housing construction. Together, immigrants in California are responsible for over $1 trillion in economic output. They're essential to the state's economic vitality. Immigration's impact on California's housing market is profound and paradoxical. Immigrants make up 39% of California's construction workforce, making them essential for building the homes California desperately needs. They also account for 40% of new household formation, adding demand to stressed housing markets. The data is clear. California's affordability crisis stems primarily from decades of underbuilding, not from immigration. Research consistently shows that native-born household formation drove most of the affordability crisis during the pandemic. Immigration adds pressure, but isn't the root cause. Looking ahead, declining immigration in 2025 could ease rental pressure but would worsen construction labor shortages, potentially slowing housing production when California needs to accelerate building. Mass deportation scenarios would devastate the construction industry while providing minimal housing relief. The solution isn't restricting immigration, it's building significantly more housing through zoning reform, streamlined permitting, and reduced construction costs. California needs immigrant construction workers to build its way out of the housing crisis while implementing policies ensuring adequate affordable housing for all residents. The bottom line, immigrants aren't destroying California's housing market. They're building it, living in it, and contributing over $8.5 billion in taxes while holding trillions in housing wealth. The housing crisis is real, but it's caused by policy failures and economic barriers, not by the people working construction sites every day to build homes for all Californians.